Everybody, it is Gordon Majak here, back with another episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. And today we are going to be hearing from one of my all time favorite artists. And when I say all time favorites, I mean easy top 10 and maybe even top 5. That's how much I love this artist. And even more than this artist rankings in my top 10 or top 5 favorite list, what matters even more than that is the fact that this is also the number one artist that I most deeply and profoundly connect with spiritually. Interesting, huh? Yeah, and it could only be one guy, that is for sure. When I say those words about connecting spiritually, there's only one dude. Only one. It is the great Van Morrison, and from 1991, this is his album, Hymns to the Silence. What a great record. Now, this was Van Morrison's 21st album there in 1991. I think now he's up to about 42 or 43, something like this. So this was roughly halfway through his career there in 1991. And a fabulous album and a fabulous song. We are going to be hearing just an absolute jam called I'm Not Feeling It Anymore. It is Van the Man Morrison. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Van Morrison. It's so difficult for me to speak to his connection with me emotionally through this incredible music. I don't even know if I can really do it justice at all. But I did read something that I wanted to share with you. I thought this was probably the best short description of Van Morrison that I've ever seen. Just short and sweet. This was written on the allmusic.com website by one of their writers, Jason Ankeny. And Jason said, Van Morrison is among pop music's true innovators, a restless seeker whose incantatory vocals and alchemized fusion of styles has produced perhaps the most spiritually transcendent body of work in rock and roll. And amen to that, because when Van Morrison, going all the way back there to the early days of his career and certainly all through all the years that I have loved him, and I've been a fan of his for a very long time, man, when Van starts singing about his soul and his spirit and God and nature and love and beauty and truth and the garden and consciousness and seeking and man, on and on and on, I am right there in the choir behind him because I know he is singing for me. And I have always loved that particular aspect of Van Morrison, and I'll tell you here in just a second when that connection, that spiritual connection, sort of got activated, because it's an interesting story before we get to the music. But my introduction to Van Morrison actually came way back there when I was a little kid in the 60s, when he had a couple big hits that I'm sure I heard and would remember from my childhood. Of course, the first one was Gloria, Gloria. I think that was 1964, so I was just a little toddler then, but that one never really left the radio. And then, of course, the classic Brown-Eyed Girl there in 1967. I would have been about 9 years old, and that was another just absolute chestnut that never really left the radio, Brown-Eyed Girl. But I think my first sort of deeper connection with Van Morrison came there in 1970 when he released his classic album, Moondance. And, of course, the song Moondance, the title track there, was such a great track, and that whole album was really good, and to put it mildly, I mean, really just a classic album. And so for me, hearing Moondance there in 1970, and then that just sort of made me want to glom on to Van Morrison a little bit more. And then as I got older and started going backwards in time into his catalog and refamiliarizing myself with some of those older albums, like the Moondance album, That's when, of course, I just got an even deeper appreciation for the great Van Morrison. So I'm looking at this list of some of my favorite Van Morrison albums. There's just so many. Yeah, I say top 10, top 5, man. Van is one of the all-timers for me. And this is, I believe, one of his very best albums. I want to share with you just a list of some of my favorite Van Morrison records here from over the years. Going all the way back there to the early days, 1968, with the Astral Weeks album. What an incredible record. Moondance was in 1970. What a great album that was. 1973, it was that classic live album, It's Too Late to Stop Now. Everybody remembers that. And they went back there and I think remastered and expanded that. So that's available in a whole different package now. But the year that I really deeply connected with Van Morrison in a spiritual sense was 1983, when he released an album called Inarticulate Speech of the Heart. And I remember there distinctly, just as clear as a bell. My memory is perfect on this one. I remember getting that album and playing that album there at AEI in my studio over and over and over again. And some of those songs, and I'm thinking of songs like Higher Than the World and Rave On John Donne, and some of those songs just spoke to me so deeply spiritually. And then, of course, 1986, he took it to a whole nother level. And this is another one of my just absolute favorite records in the world by any artist. And that was the Van Morrison album, No Guru, No Method, No Teacher. What an epic album that was. I played that album so many times there in 1986. And then he followed it up. I mean, this is just ridiculous now. Inarticulate Speech of the Heart was in 1983, and that's when that connection really took hold. No Guru album is in 86. Boom. I mean, I'm just going deeper and deeper with Van Morrison. 1987, he follows that up with Poetic Champions Compose. Just another, just such a beautiful and deep and soulful and spiritual record. He follows that up a couple years later. There was an album called Enlightenment, and so many incredible songs on the Enlightenment album. The next year, 1991, it is this great album, Hymns to the Silence, that we're going to be hearing here in a second. 2002, another one of my favorite. I mean, look, we're in 5 decades now, up into 2002. Down the Road, that was just a classic Van Morrison album, and one that I played to death back there in the early 2000s. 2005, another one, just a classic, Magic Time. What a record Magic Time was from Van Morrison. And then, of course, in 2008, he put out that great live album, the Astral Weeks live album, where he basically did the entire Astral Weeks album live down there in LA and recorded the whole thing. And that was just an incredible record. But I could go on and on and on with Van Morrison, with the songs and the albums, all of it. And as I look at this list of albums, I'll just tell you, folks, I mean, we are going to be hearing songs from virtually all of these albums on the channel. So I'm going to have to get busy here with my Van Morrison and pick up the pace, because we haven't even done our first one yet. This one is the first one today. And I'm just looking at these albums and knowing how many great songs are on each of these albums. And it's ridiculous. So Van Morrison, what can you say about Van Morrison? Pop, rock, R&B, blues, jazz, folk, Celtic music. You just put it all together, and the guy is just, I think, almost unparalleled in his ability to cross over so many styles and do so many of these styles so authentically and so organically and so expertly. And then, of course, as a singer, I mean, I don't even know how you describe Van Morrison as a vocalist. He's easily one of my very, very favorite male singers. And man, he can just put you in a trance and just take you somewhere else, take you on a journey, a musical journey. And Van Morrison has always done that for me. And it's an artist that I have come back to again and again and again. And I think that spiritual connection, that really deep spiritual connection in his lyrics and in his vocals in particular, has always just spoken to my soul. I mean, this is going back now into the early 80s when he really just got me with that. Higher Than the World and Rave On, John Donne. And then the next album, it was No Guru, No Method, and Teacher, In the Garden. Oh my gosh, they just one great album after another there with Van Morrison. So let's get to our song here. Let's hear this. This is a nice long jam. I got to see Van Morrison do this song live in concert here several years ago when I got to see him only once. And fortunately, he did this song, which is one of my favorites. It's a nice long jam here, so I'm going to just pause it really quick somewhere there in the middle, and then for the most part, you guys will just get to enjoy this groovy tune. And this is just coming right down Main Street out of the Van Morrison catalog here. I'm Not Feeling It Anymore from 1991. It is the great Van Morrison.
Back to base. I need to talk to somebody I can trust. Too many cooks are trying to spoil the broth. That's all she wrote. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore. Not feeling it no more. Not feeling it anymore. Well, everything looked good. I was seeing through rose-colored glasses, not seeing the wood for the trees. Started out a normal operation, but I just ended up in doubt. Buddies, they lock me out. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm trying to give you the score.
Now, come on. This guy is one of the greatest singers ever. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head how old Van Morrison was here in 1991 when he did this record. But as I said, this is about roughly halfway into his career compared to where we are now at about 42 or 43 records. This is his 21st record back there in 1991. But man, listening to him just burning up this stuff. This is just the most laid-back groove and soul thing here. And this train is just starting to pick up speed going down the tracks here. But it's so subtle and so cool the way Van Morrison just sort of paces the band and keeps that little groove just percolating underneath there. I love that.
You see me up there, baby. I'm on the screen. But I know better now. It's so unreal. If this is success, then something's awful wrong. 'Cause I bought the dream and I had to play alone. I'm not feeling thinking that it is somewhere else. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore. Baby, I'm trying to give you the score. I'm not feeling it no more. I was pretending all the time. I was giving everybody what they wanted, and I lost my peace of mind. You know, all I ever wanted was simply just to be me. All you ever need is the truth, and the truth will set you free. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm trying to give you the score, just like I did before. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm not feeling it no more. Baby, I'm just trying to get it score. I'm not feeling it no more. I'm not feeling it anymore.
What a master. Just one of the absolute all-time music masters that I have ever heard. The great Van Morrison. Man, the way he leads that band, he is just like a conductor of that band, the way they just sizzle that little groove along there for 6.5 minutes, and it goes by like nothing. And that thing is just bubbling down the tracks there. And Van Morrison with those great vocals on top, you always get those soulful backup vocals. His musicians are always just locked in. But it's Van Morrison's personality, man. You put all those styles together that he has just mastered. So many styles, as I said, pop, rock, rhythm and blues, soul, all the different eras of blues and soul, jazz, folk music, traditional Irish music, Celtic pop, and gospel. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And he weaves all of those influences into just such a unique and such a powerful blend. And I think someone came up with that great term that I just think is a beautiful term, Caledonia soul, being that Van Morrison, of course, is Irish. And I think that is just the greatest term. I love the sound of that term, Caledonia soul. That is that unique blend of all those incredible styles and the way Van Morrison pulls them all together. And as I said, man, the spiritual component of his music, I don't think it's an exaggeration. If I think back on my life and I look at these albums, and like I said, it really started big time there with Inarticulate Speech of the Heart in 1983. That record really was a mind blower for me and really sort of an expander of my mind there in a spiritual and musical way. And one of the first really powerful connections that I felt in the union of the spiritual world and the musical world. There's so many, I'm looking at these albums, and there is so many just iconic vocal performances in my book on these records. And that's why I say we are going to be revisiting so many of these records, and I'm going to start amping up the Van Morrison quotient here on the channel because there's just too much, and I feel too deep of a connection to him musically and spiritually, as I said, and I'm so grateful for that. And there's so many songs on here that I want to expose you guys to and share with you guys, and that will just be so rewarding for me to do that. So yeah, look for a lot more Van Morrison as we go forward here. Caledonia Soul. I love that term. I'm going to have to look that up and see who coined that phrase. Maybe it was Van Morrison himself. I'm not sure. But I always loved that term. It's such a cool term. Caledonia Soul. And don't forget this album, folks. Don't sleep on this album. It's a little bit hard to find sometime. But this was Van Morrison's 21st album, as I said, and it was his first double album. So there's 21 songs on here spread across 2 discs, and I don't think there's a bad song in the bunch. This is just such an incredible record, and I remember again very clearly, as I do with so many of his albums, hearing them for the first time, getting them in at work, and hearing them and just going, "Are you kidding me?" and just being blown away in a completely different way with every album. He just kept going deeper and broader, and just amazing. It's like you go with Van Morrison, man, you are going on a journey, a musical journey and a spiritual journey, and what a long trip it has been. Thank you, Van Morrison. Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. Wow, Van. Too much music, but we're going to get to it. See ya.